In Haiti, health authorities registered 594 deaths from cholera and 32,141 suspected cases, almost 5 months after the resurgence of the disease. In the United States, a court in New York finds former Mexican Security Secretary Genaro García Luna guilty of drug trafficking. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin delivered his annual address to report on the main domestic and foreign policy paths ahead. Hello, welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Haitian health authorities have registered 594 deaths from cholera and over 32,000 suspected cases, almost 5 months after the resurgence of the disease. According to the National Ministry of Health and Population, 2,000 confirmed cases were reported in the 10 departments of the country. Together with 22,469 are suspected cases, and more than 28,000 have also been confirmed. And moving on, Nicaraguans on Tuesday paid homage to national hero General Augusto Cesar Sandino on the 89th anniversary of his murder. Thousands of Nicaraguans participated in the Sandino Siempre Más Allá walk held nationwide to commemorate the anniversary of the death of the also known as hero for Las Segovias. The march ended with a concert in an atmosphere of fraternity where workers from different unions and social sectors, Sandinista militants and supporters waved the red and black flag to the rhythm of the revolutionary music. And a U.S. District Court in New York finds a former Mexican Security Secretary Genaro García Luna guilty of drug trafficking. The Mexican government considers justice to be served. The jury returned the guilty verdict on all 5 counts before Judge Brian Cogan, who will hand down the sentence on June 27th. García Luna faces a maximum sentence of life imprisonment and a minimum of 20 years in prison. And García Luna's lawyer, Cesar de Castro, said they will appeal the verdict and expressed both Garcia and his families are disappointed since they think the jury's decision was justified only on the basis of statements made by former security agents and drug lords.
The government had no reliable evidence to corroborate their witnesses. Mr. García Luna, his family, and the defense team trusted in the process and trusted that the jury would see through the government's case. We are very disappointed that it did not, but we respect the jury's decision.
And in the U.S., the Norfolk Southern Railroad Company in charge of the train derailment in Ohio revealed that a large amount of soil and water were removed from the accident site due to substantial contamination. According to the company, about 7,000 kilograms of soil and more than 3,800,000 liters of water were removed from the affected area in the community in East Palestine, although it did not clarify what harmful substances were found in the removed elements. And also in the U.S., a new derailment of more than 30 cars of coal freight train is reported in the state of Nebraska. Local media reported that the incident occurred near the city of Gothenburg, where so far no injuries have been reported after the incident. Authorities assured that they are carrying out the corresponding investigations to determine the cause of the accident. And also in the U.S., at least 2 people were killed and 3 others injured after a fire broke out in an industrial area in the state of Florida. According to firefighter sources, the blaze broke out in the town of Meadley and affected several parked vehicles. Officials said the flames were completely extinguished while the injured were taken to health centers for treatment as soon as possible. In Recife, Brazil, where Carnival resumed this week after being canceled for 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic, thousands of revelers came out to dance down the streets behind the Nothing Group. Our correspondent, Brian Muir, has more.
In Recife, one of the historic epicenters of Brazil's street carnival, thousands of revelers from across the spectrum of the political left came out on Monday to celebrate nothing.
It's a carnival thing. You create a fantasy, and our fantasy is nothing. But inside this nothing, there's a lot of leftists and a lot of happiness. Everything is different.
The Bloco da Nada, or Nothing Group, started 20 years ago when Gerson da Silva couldn't find any paint for the white flag he had sewn to lead his new parade group. Although he was so disappointed he almost cancelled it, his wife suggested that he just go out anyway with a blank flag.
A guy leaned his head out of the window of a bus that was stuck in traffic and looked at a flag and said, "There's nothing on it. This is the Nothing Group. We decided that this would be our new name."
As years passed, Nothing became more than just a funny name. It began to symbolize the hope of a leftist utopia, which would have to start from nothing. And the group began inviting guest speakers from areas like philosophy and history to host debates about the concept of nothing.
The Nothing is a resistant group made of very politicized leftists who don't just meet to celebrate Carnival, which is our essence as people. But we also have philosophical and literary meetings to debate the politics of Carnival. So this is it, nothing.
Brian Muir, teleSUR, Recife.
We're taking our first break now. Join us again after this. And also don't forget to follow us on our TikTok account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday delivered his annual address to the State Duma and the Federation Council, the two chambers of the Federal Assembly, to report on the main domestic and foreign policy paths ahead. The speech has been widely broadcasted internationally as it addressed various issues of relevance not only for the Russian people but for the international community. The president's message explained the strategic directions of Russia's developments for the near future, including political, economic, and ideological provisions as concrete proposals in the field of legislative work of both houses of the parliament. And China's foreign ministry on Tuesday criticized military aid and provided to Ukraine by the United States and its allies, saying that the U.S. claims to maintain peace, but actually it is making money from the crisis.
The U.S. is the largest supplier of weapons to the battlefield in Ukraine. Yesterday, the U.S. just announced another $500 million in military aid to Ukraine. It makes people wonder what the U.S. is up to by falsely claiming that China is offering weapons. The U.S. claims to maintain peace, but actually it is making money from the crisis.
The office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission of the Chinese Communist Party, Wang Yi, arrived in Moscow as part of his visit, during which he hopes to reinforce a peace agenda within the framework of the Global Security Initiative. According to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, a meeting between the Chinese representative and Russian President Vladimir Putin is not ruled out, where strategic issues and the assessment of a global peace agenda could be discussed. The possible meeting seeks to pave the way for deepening and advancing bilateral mutual political trust. In this regard, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that during a meeting with Wang on the sidelines of a security conference in Munich, Germany, he addressed his concern to the Chinese diplomat about Beijing's stance regarding the conflict in Ukraine. And the president of the U.S., Joe Biden, announced on Tuesday in Warsaw that his country will host the next summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to be held next year. The summit will coincide with the 75th anniversary of the founding of this warmongering alliance created in Washington, D.C. on April 4th, 1949. In his speech in front of hundreds of people at the former Royal Castle in Warsaw, Biden said the U.S. will impose more sanctions against Russia this week and advocated NATO member country support for Ukraine. On Wednesday, the U.S. president is scheduled to meet in the capital with the heads of state and governments of 9 countries on the eastern flank of the Atlantic Alliance. Biden's visit to Ukraine and Poland was criticized for neglecting domestic problems such as the harmful consequences of a trail derailment with chemical substances. We're taking our last break now. Join us again after this. And also don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at @telesur for more. Stay with us.
Deep gaze.
Welcome back to From the South. More news now. On Monday, at least 6 people were killed and 300 injured after 2 new earthquakes of magnitude 6.5 and 5.8 were recorded south of Turkey. According to Turkish media, 294 people were injured in the southeastern province of Hatay. 18 of them are in serious condition and have already been transferred to the cities of Adana and Dortiol. The Euro-Mediterranean Seismological Center reported that the earthquake was registered 9 kilometers from Antalya in Turkey and 75 kilometers from the Syrian city of Lataya at a depth of 10 kilometers. The quakes were perceived in Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, and Cyprus. On Tuesday, a UN delegation visited northern Syria to assess the damage caused by February's quakes, which have killed thousands across Turkey and Syria. Even before the earthquake wreaked havoc on both sides of the border, the Syrian rebel-held enclave of 4.6 million people was plagued by the extreme misery, with many living in displacement camps and relying on humanitarian aid to survive. During the tour, UN Deputy Regional Humanitarian Coordinator David Carden assessed complaints regarding delays in getting UN aid to affected areas. Carden said that last week the UN and President Assad reached the deal to open 2 additional crossings.
We came to see what the needs were. There's huge needs in shelter, in health, the need for fresh water, for sanitation, and of course removal of debris.
The government of Botswana denounced the rise in poaching of different rhino species. According to Botswana's Minister of Tourism, Pilda Kering, the increase follows the introduction of strong measures against poachers in neighboring South Africa, forcing them to look elsewhere for horns in the face of demand on the international market. In Asia, rhino horns are used in traditional medicine for their supposed therapeutic effects. According to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, a total of 285 white rhinos and 23 black rhinos remain endangered in Botswana. Africa's longest river, the Nile, is under threat. The river is essential for millions of people in the continent. Global warming and the misuse by humans now jeopardize the future of the Nile, whose flow has fallen from 3,000 cubic meters per second to 2,830 in the past 5 decades. Water expert Ahmed Al-Mofti predicts that loss of water will have environmental impacts, while the increase of pollution would bring about an overuse and misusage of its waters. According to the United Nations, the lack of rainfall and the increased droughts expected in Africa means that the river flow could fall by 70% by 2100. 5 upstream states signed a cooperative framework agreement in 2010, which outlined the principal rights and obligations for cooperative management and the development of the river's water resources. And in eastern Cuba, a forest fire of great proportions is affecting Pinares de Mayarí, Holguín province. The fire is also threatening the facilities of the Mountain Research Center, which is why extinguishing actions have been intensified in the surrounding area. Efforts are being made to build a road since Monday afternoon in order to interrupt the passage of the flames towards Villa Pinares. Forces of the Fire Command 16 confronted the flames to avoid their extension to the wooden buildings. The first 4 outbreaks were identified last Saturday, and although the firefighting system was immediately activated, the flames gained ground due to the strong winds and the abundance of combustible material. The death toll from the heavy rains that have hit the coast of the Brazilian state of Sao Paulo on Tuesday rose from 40 to 44 deaths, while the number of missing remains at around 40. Official sources reported that the hardest hit area is the municipality of São Sebastián, where 43 deaths have been registered in what is already one of the greatest tragedies in the history of the region. The area endured a record level of rainfall in the history of the country, with more than 680 millimeters in 24 hours. Meanwhile, the other fatality was recorded in the town of Ubatuba due to a climatic event. Some 2,500 people have been forced to leave their homes and take temporary shelter in the homes of relatives, schools, and the headquarters of civil society organizations. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief, but be sure to follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And also be sure to follow us on our website at telesurenglish.net. Be sure to follow us on our socials. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.